Hey, Chef Ro here. Today I'm going to teach you a traditional Wampanoag dish called na samp. It is so traditional that some historians feel that this was actually served at the first Thanksgiving. It's been slightly modified to today's tastes overall, but this is what they feel one of those original dishes were. The Wampanoag tribe is from the northeast, and so you'll notice a lot of those flavors here in this dish. Okay? Simple porridge type dish that can be eaten for breakfast or any time of day, but it is kind of a porridge dish that you might think of almost like a cross between grits and oatmeal. So a lot of people think of this as a breakfast dish. These are the ingredients you're going to need. Once you've got all your ingredients gathered, and there's not a lot of them, and there's a lot of variety that you can choose from, I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. Here I have my cornmeal. This would have been traditionally dried corn that was ground against rocks to make a meal similar to what we know as cornmeal today. I have my nuts and seeds. I chose walnuts and pumpkin seeds because those would have been very similar to what they would have found in that area at that time. They would have also crushed those against the rocks, so I have taken my mortar and pestle and crushed that, my molcajete here. If you don't have a molcajete or mortar and pestle, you can just give them a little bit of a chop, right, so that they're not huge pieces. And I have my blueberries, and I have it divided out here, right, so there's my half a cup, and here is my full cup. The reason that I have it divided out is the small portion of this is going to be for garnish, okay? So you're going to want a cup of it to go into the pot and the other part to stay out. Okay, so I have my cornmeal. Now, usually if you're making a dish called polenta, you bring it to a boil first and then very gently rein it in so that there are no lumps. But in this dish, we put it all together and then bring it to a boil so that everything cooks in it together. So we're going to start by very slowly getting the water in there so that we're not going to have a really lumpy porridge. Okay? Okay, so we're just going to add little bits at a time until a paste has formed, and then we can add the rest in. Okay, I have all of my water in, so now I'm just going to add my blueberries. And again, you can use any berry you want. I just chose blueberries, okay? And you're going to put almost all your nuts in. I like to leave just a couple of them for garnish also. Then this is the part that has been modified for today's world. A little bit of maple syrup. Now you can add as much or as little maple syrup as you'd like. You can also use just sugar, or you could use honey. You can use whatever sweetener you'd like. Back in the traditional days, they didn't have sugar, so they likely would not have used sugar or even sweetened it at all. But in modern society, people like their dishes just a little bit sweeter. But still, you would have found the tribes using maple syrup or honey, and maple syrup especially because, again, this is a northeast tribe where maple syrup is made. So that's why they would have found maple syrup to be a more traditional item. Now we're going to take this and turn it on to a medium-high heat, and we're going to bring it to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we're going to turn it down just a little bit to like a medium-low and let it simmer for about 15 minutes until it's as thick as we like. My na samp actually got done even before the 15 minutes was up. Depends on the heat of your stove and your pan and everything. Sometimes it'll get to your desired thickness before a full 15 minutes. Take a little bite as long as the cornmeal is cooked through and it's the thickness that you like. You can just turn it off. You don't have to wait for the full 15 minutes. Okay? If it got too thick and you feel like the cornmeal isn't cooked through, you can always add just a little bit more water to make sure that it cooks, and it will thicken right back up again. The joy of cornmeal, it keeps taking as much water as you give it. Now, if your berries pop or disintegrate into the porridge, don't be concerned. In fact, that's what we want. Traditionally, that is how they would have actually sweetened this dish, rather than sugar or maple or honey. Very, very traditionally. Now they use a little bit of both, right? We can use both, but that is how they would have gotten some natural sweetness into the dish in the past. Let me show you what mine looks like. So you can see it got very, very thick, and it turned quite blue from my blueberries, or I guess kind of a purple. Blueberries aren't technically blue. So I am completely done. Now, if you wanted it a little bit thinner, you could put a little more water back in there and thin it back down just a bit. To serve it, all we're going to do is take a little bit of our porridge and put it into our bowl, okay? Again, if you want it a little thinner, you can add a little more water. Now, I like to take a couple of blueberries and a little bit of my reserved nuts, and if you are feeling so inclined, you can even drizzle just a touch more of that maple syrup on top, or whatever sweetener you chose, right? And just a little drizzle like that. And now you have a beautiful nasamp. If you are super ambitious, you can actually take this, lay it out flat, like on a sheet tray or a cookie sheet, right? Let it cool completely, okay? Refrigerate it overnight. You can cut it into pieces, and then you can even pan fry it, okay? So it's kind of crispy on the outside and soft and mushy on the inside. It's really, really delicious. So that's another way that you can do it. You can also add a little bit of flour to it and fry it right away, kind of like a fritter. Those are the different ways that you could do it. Okay? Now you know how to make nasamp. Hopefully you will enjoy adding this dish to your repertoire.